ABBA was one of the most loved and successful pop groups in music history. Their songs, voices, and unique charm made millions of people around the world fall in love with them. Among the four members, one couple stood out the most: Bjorn Ulvaeus and Agnetha. They were seen as the perfect pair, both young, beautiful, and talented. Fans admired how their love seemed as strong as the songs they created together. When they performed on stage, it felt as if the music itself came alive through them. People believed they were living a fairy tale, a story of love, music, and fame, all shining under the spotlight. But behind that shine, the reality of their relationship was very different. Before they were famous, Bjorn and Agnetha met through music. Bjorn was already a member of a popular Swedish folk group, and Agnetha was a rising singer-songwriter known for her clear, emotional voice. When they started working together, their connection was instant. They married in 1971, and soon after, the group ABBA formed, named after the first letters of their four names: Agnetha, Bjorn, Benny, and Anni-Frid. Together, they became a global sensation. Every song they released seemed to climb the charts. They sang about love, hope, heartbreak, and happiness, emotions everyone could relate to. For fans, it looked like Bjorn and Agnetha were living the dream, singing about love while actually being in love. But fame has a way of testing even the strongest relationships. ABBA's success meant constant travel, endless rehearsals, interviews, and tours that took them away from home and from their children. Bjorn was passionate about writing songs and often worked late nights in the studio, while Agnetha began to feel lonely and disconnected. She loved performing, but she also longed for a quiet, family life, something that fame made almost impossible. As ABBA's popularity exploded around the world, the private struggles between Bjorn and Agnetha grew deeper. The cameras captured their smiles, but when the lights turned off, there was tension, silence, and sadness between them. Agnetha had always been a sensitive person. She cared deeply about her family and often worried about safety, accidents, and the future. The stress of constant fame made these fears even stronger. She was often anxious about flying, worried that something might happen to her or her children while touring. At night, she would sometimes wake up from nightmares about losing her family. Bjorn, on the other hand, dealt with his emotions differently. He buried himself in his work, writing and producing songs for the band. But that distance only made Agnetha feel more alone. Their personalities began to clash. Agnetha wanted comfort and emotional closeness, while Bjorn needed space and control. What once brought them together, their shared love for music, slowly became the reason they were drifting apart. Even though things were becoming difficult behind the scenes, they continued to perform together. Their voices blended perfectly, even as their hearts moved in opposite directions. Fans could never have guessed that their beautiful harmonies were often sung through pain. Agnetha once described those years as both the happiest and the hardest of her life. She loved singing with ABBA, but she could feel her marriage slipping away. Bjorn also felt the strain. Their busy schedule left little time for family or for healing old wounds. The love that once seemed unbreakable was slowly fading. It wasn't one big argument or betrayal that ended it. It was the slow, quiet loss of connection over time. Still, both of them remained professional. They smiled in interviews and stood side by side on stage, performing for thousands of adoring fans. But inside, they knew something had changed forever. Their marriage was falling apart, and neither of them knew how to fix it. They had built a life together, shared their dreams, and created music that would last for generations, yet they were losing the most important part of it all: each other. In 1979, Bjorn and Agnetha finally decided to separate. It was one of the most painful choices they had ever made, but they both knew it was inevitable. The spark that had once defined their love had faded, replaced by sadness, exhaustion, and a quiet sense of defeat. Even though they promised to stay friends for the sake of their children and the band, the emotional wound ran deep. Around that same time, Bjorn began working on new songs with Benny Andersson. Among these was a piece that would soon become one of ABBA's most famous and most heartbreaking songs: "The Winner Takes It All." According to Bjorn, the song started as a simple melody. He and Benny were working in a small cottage on Vigzek Island when they came up with the idea. The working title was "The Story of My Life." But as Bjorn began writing the lyrics, something inside him broke open. He later admitted that he was drinking whiskey while writing because it helped him face the emotions he had been trying to ignore. Within just 1 hour, he poured out all his feelings into the song: the pain of separation, the confusion, the regret, and the helplessness of watching a love fall apart. He said it was the fastest he had ever written lyrics in his life, but also the most emotional. When the song was finished, Bjorn gave the lyrics to Agnetha to sing. Imagine that, being asked to perform a song written by your ex, describing the very heartbreak you were living through. Agnetha later said it was one of the hardest performances she ever gave. The moment she read the lyrics, she cried, but she knew she had to sing it, not just as a performer, but as someone who had lived those words. The emotion in her voice was real. Every note carried the pain of their breakup. When she recorded "The Winner Takes It All," her performance turned the song into something timeless. It wasn't just a pop ballad anymore. It was a confession, a farewell, and a love letter all at once. B. Jane publicly denied that the song was directly about their divorce. He said it was fiction based on real feelings. But fans could see through that. The song's lyrics were too personal, too raw, to be pure fiction. Lines like "the winner takes it all," "the losers standing small" felt like they came straight from the heart. Many listeners believed that Bjorn was expressing his guilt and sadness, while Agnetha's voice revealed her pain and loss. Whether or not it was literally about their relationship didn't matter. It became their story in the eyes of millions. When the song was released, it immediately became a hit. It reached #1 in several countries and remains one of ABBA's most emotional and iconic songs. But for Bjorn and Agnetha, performing it was a bittersweet experience. On stage, they stood together, singing about heartbreak, even though the wound was still fresh. Fans could feel the emotion in every performance. Some said that Agnetha's voice on that song sounded like she was crying through melody, soft, trembling, but strong enough to carry the message of loss and acceptance. Behind the music, however, the emotional toll was heavy. Agnetha struggled deeply after the divorce. She tried to focus on her children and her solo career, but the sadness didn't go away easily. Fame made things harder. She couldn't escape the public's constant interest in her private life. Every interview, every newspaper headline, seemed to remind her of the past. Bjorn moved on more quickly, remarrying soon after, but even he admitted that the divorce left a mark that would never fully fade. For both of them, "The Winner Takes It All" was not just a song, it was closure, but also a reminder of everything they had lost. After their separation, ABBA continued to work together for a few more years, but things were never the same. The chemistry that had once made the band magical was now shadowed by sadness. They performed professionally, but the joy was gone. By 1982, ABBA had stopped recording new music altogether. Each member went their separate ways, pursuing solo projects or new lives away from the constant glare of fame. For Agnetha, the years after the breakup were some of the hardest. She found herself struggling with loneliness and fear. She spoke in later interviews about feeling empty after the band ended, as if she had lost not just her marriage, but her purpose.